Our story begins a long time ago in China. Mrs. Bao is giving birth to her 9th child, and her husband is very disappointed to see it's a girl. It's not that he hates girls, really. It's just that he already has 8 of those. One of the younger ones is excited anyway, and she runs to the riverbank to share the news with her sisters. And what about this bunch of boys in the water? These are their neighbors, a group of 8 orphan boys adopted long ago by Master Tianlong. The two families are fierce rivals because of their different fighting styles. While the girls are trained in the Wu-Tang sword abilities, the boys are learning to master Shaolin Kungfu. San Feng is the 3rd Wu-Tang daughter, and she has a terrible temper. When the boys hear the news of Mrs. Bao having yet another baby girl, they don't miss the opportunity to mock the Wu-Tangs. Very mad at them, San Feng expresses her feelings with a paddle. The Shaolin boys retaliate by pointing out that she looks and behaves like a boy. Getting progressively annoyed, she ends up calling herself their master, which only fuels the joke even more. One of the boys says she lacks one particular detail in order to be a master. When she throws that boy in the water, his brothers are confused for a moment. Despite the rivalry, they know they are not supposed to fight girls. That's when Sanlong arrives and solves the moral dilemma by spitting a mouthful of water in Sanfeng's face. A pathetic tug-of-war begins, with Sanlong all by himself against all the girls. With a trick older than his country, he lets go at the right moment to send them piling up on each other. All the Shaolin boys start to sing a song about San Feng being a lesbian. Hopefully it's not true, because it'd be super sad for a lesbian to live in a place where she's related to every girl she knows. Master Tianlong is sending some ginseng for Mrs. Bao's recovery, and his brother complains about that. He fears he'll never marry at this rate, as a bride costs 10 cows, and they have saved enough for only 3 in over a decade. Trying a bit of toxic positivity, Tianlong says the last 6 months have been great, and now they can afford a whole leg. Wow! One of the little boys sneaks in to look at their dad's financial plan and takes the liberty to complete the image. Now there's an audience forming, and they can't wait to see Tianlong's reaction. Sure enough, the boy gets smacked and thrown over the fence. He also manages to land right on top of a porcupine, which makes everyone laugh even harder. Tianlong tells them to cut it out and go practice some kung fu. The little guys are real pros but can never behave for too long. On the other side of the river, Bao Sanfeng is talking to his 8 daughters about the 9th sister. The family needs a boy to keep their legacy alive. Girls are bound to fly away from the nest. Sanfeng tells him that she'll never marry. Always fighting like a dragon, she can inherit the Wu-Tang sword just fine. Her 2 older sisters giggle at the thought of Sanfeng being the heir or actually marrying someone. Bao takes the opportunity to tell them he won't let any of his daughters marry one of the Shaolin boys from across the river. The only reason they have an eye on his girls is because they want to steal his special skills with the sword. He says the Shaolin Kung Fu is BS, and the Wu-Tang sword is unique. Obviously, the Shaolin family has the exact opposite opinion. And according to Sanlong's advice to his brothers, a real man speaks his mind. Except when their dad is coming, and they're complaining about him, of course. But when they fall asleep and Tianlong looks after them lovingly, they wake up feeling bad about what they said and apologize. Pretending to be sad, he says they only talk like that because he's not their real dad. That brings back memories of what happened 10 years ago. A group of bandits attacked the village and decimated their families. Tianlong and his younger brother Yilong fought them off with kung fu skills, but were able to save only the children. One of the bandits lost an eye in the battle. Tianlong then raised these little devils all by himself, and that's why they call them Dad and not Master. Now their hearts are broken to hear the story again. They bow before him and cry, deeply sorry for having called him names like that. Not really mad at all. Tianlong takes a moment to goof around with his boys. Meanwhile, the one-eyed bandit is not as gone as they think. He is determined to seek revenge, and his men are eager to attack again. They've heard about the Wu-Tang girls just across the river, and that's all the motivation they need. One-Eyed worries that they might lose to the Shaolin Kung Fu again. And now they're up against the Wu-Tang sword too. His advisor, a man they call Cross-Eyed Bandit, says he has a solution. As the two families are longtime rivals, they can be easily tricked into fighting each other first, weakening their combat abilities before the gang strikes. They agree to put that plan into action. Impersonating a Buddhist healer, our cross-eyed friend infiltrated the Wu-Tang house. He tells Bao that his feng shui is all messed up, and the patriarch is dumb enough to believe him. Cross-Eyed says the problem is on the other side of the river. Those Shaolin boys are stealing his masculinity and turning him into a baby girl factory. At the same time, the boys are talking about how badly they need a mother in their household. They know Bao hates their guts, but maybe one of the girls could put in a good word. Sanlong wonders how that could happen if they've been heavily mocking those same girls since forever. So they come up with their own stupid plan. Sanlong will apologize to Sanfeng. But to avoid getting into another fight, he'll try to be as much of a gentleman as he can. And apparently, that involves stealing his dad's fancy clothes. One of his younger brothers, probably the only one with some sense, shakes his head at the pathetic look. On their way to complete humiliation, they see someone is already crossing the bridge. It's their uncle, Yulong. Now we see why he wants those cows so much. He has a crush on Tai Feng, Bao's second daughter, and she seems to like him too. But they are soon rudely interrupted by Sanfeng, and this time she even brought her sword. She points at the sign which says, "No Shaolin past this point," and reminds her sister that the neighbors are off limits. A reasonable person would think this is enough to abort the mission, but reasonable people are hard to find on either side of this river. Moving like a deranged puppet, Sanlong tries to apologize for the offensive tune he had sung so happily just a few hours earlier. The rest of the boys are right behind him, and the girls are curious to see what's happening. When the boy somersaults into the forbidden area, Sanfeng decides it's time to let the sword do the talking. Totally abandoning the original plan, the boys begin to cheer him on and tell him to show her the Shaolin Kung Fu. The girl ends up in the water, and her sister begins to cry because she can't swim. Everyone rushes to pull her out, and they tell Sanlong she needs the kiss of life. Although deeply disgusted, the boy agrees to try. But he doesn't even need to. The mere possibility of such a horror wakes her up right away. At the Shaolin yard, the boys laugh about the fiasco while trying to mend those orange pants. They're impressed by the precision of the Wu-Tang sword and wonder what it could do if ever combined with Shaolin Kung Fu. But now their uncle is coming, very cross to hear they've been fighting women. He tells them to fight each other if they're so brave. The boys initially refuse and invoke their pure brotherly love, but just a bit of insistence gets them slapping and kicking everyone like there's no tomorrow. That seems to inspire the girls too, at least the 5 youngest. They agree to have a martial art competition with the boys and show they know a bit of Kung Fu too. Sanfeng arrives during the bathroom break, and she's not pleased at that sight. The boys run away, but she cuts down the bridge before they can get across. With perfect timing as always, Sanlong comes waving a white flag. He praises the Wu-Tang swordsmanship and requests permission to demonstrate some of the Shaolin Kung Fu. They could teach each other. A combination of both skills would make them invincible. Sanfeng agrees to watch the demo. She kicks him out again when it's over, but he counts it as a win anyway. He tells his brothers that the lady is hooked on his Kung Fu now. Surprisingly, he's not that wrong. Sanfeng begins to practice the moves when no one is looking. Or so she thinks. All the younger sisters are watching her, and they take the first break to yell at her. Why can't they learn Kung Fu and play with the boys if she can? Sanfeng says they're free to befriend the Shaolin boys as long as they keep all of this from their dad. Speaking of him, Bao is having a hard time at home. His wife is tired of getting pregnant nonstop only for him to complain that it's a girl again. She also thinks that 10 cows is too expensive. No one's gonna pay that much, and their daughters will just gather dust on the shelf. And what is this nonsense veto on the Shaolin when there is no one else around to marry them? so they make a deal. Mrs. Bao will try it one last time, and if it turns out to be a boy, then the oldest girl is free to marry a Shaolin. 9 months later, the Wu-Tangs welcome their 10th baby girl, but this time, she has a twin brother. Bao is over the moon now, and so are the Shaolin boys, because they know what it means. The grumpy old man will finally let go of one of his girls. There is a big party to celebrate the birth of the Wu-Tang sword heir. The Shaolin boys put on a show for the whole family, and even San Feng is persuaded to collaborate with them, at least for the performance. But the crossed-eye bandit is still here, and he has Bao's trust more than ever. Mrs. Bao, on the other hand, wastes no time. She invites Yi Long for a visit and tells him to bring his 4 cows. It's gotta be enough. On their way to the house, the boys see a man named Mr. Mao, clearly going to the same place. He's parading 10 splendid cows, while the Shaolin have 4 skinny ones. When they get there, Bao is playing with his favorite child. His joy is totally gone at the Shaolin's pathetic offer. Mrs. Bao reminds him of their deal, but that's when Mr. Mao arrives, offering those 10 fat cows. With a big smile, Bao says his son can have Tai Feng. But the spoiled young man says he wants the 3rd daughter, the feisty San Feng. She agrees to marry this guy if he manages to beat her in a fight. The older men are amused while Ma Jr. is totally counting that unhatched chicken. But of course, it does not go as they expect at all. Mr. Ma calls off the offer in horror and says these girls are insane. Yu Long prepares to fight San Feng too, but for her sister's hand. Bao stops him to clarify a few things. Tai Feng costs 10 cows. San Feng costs a Kungfu victory. But Ye Feng is their little bird and her husband must be a great singer. San Long interrupts the negotiation to say everyone knows his uncle can barely speak well, let alone sing. He accuses Bao of picking impossible tasks, and Tianlong decides to leave before the situation gets any uglier. Going after the Shaolin to apologize, Mrs. Bao bumps into the crossed-eye snitch, who's here to tell on the younger girls. The kids are playing games and having the most fun when the party poopers arrive. Bao throws the smallest one in the river and threatens to kill them if they ever come to this side again. Tianlong is also mad at his boys and even punishes them for real this time. They say they were trying to help him marry Tai Feng and give them a proper mom. He says Shaolin fighters have done without ladies for ages and might as well give them up. To make that transformation more complete, he shaves everyone's head and says they are Buddhist monks now. While the orphans are happy to play along, his brother refuses to give up on Yi Feng. He says Tianlong is wrong to forget his woman so easily. The boys worry about their uncle, but Tianlong says he always runs to the cave when he's annoyed like this. Sanlong's new look gives him a crazy idea. Wearing a wig and girl's clothes, he pretends to be Bao's new maid. He helps Yi Feng get out to elope with his uncle. They are intercepted by San Feng, but she decides to turn a blind eye to make her sister happy. Tipped off by the cross-eyed bandit, Bao catches them in the act. Yi Feng escapes and San Long crosses the river, but San Feng is detained. The punishment for helping the sinners elope is drowning. San Feng's mother despairs and begs her husband to reconsider, but he says it's the law. From the other side of the river, young protesters hold up signs calling Bao a heartless bastard. San Long shows up too and turns himself in, confessing it was all his fault. That doesn't help the accomplice much. They are both thrown in the river. Bao has a last-minute change of heart, but when he finally pulls the water casket, his daughter is gone. San Long had saved her and taken her to her uncle's cave. Without having to watch that bunch of brats or deal with that awful dad, San Feng is simply transformed, and that surely doesn't go unnoticed by San Long. He finally convinces her to teach him a little swordplay, and of course that's exactly when Bao walks in, with Tianlong right behind him. Both dads drag their kid home. Later that day, two of the Shaolin boys see the cross-eyed bandit in Indian clothes, carrying a bag into the cave. They follow him inside and are shocked to see what's in the bag. It's Baby Bao. Yulong comes to help the boys when they start fighting the kidnapper, but Cross-Eyed escapes and changes back into his normal clothes. So when the Shaolin boys return the baby safely, Bao is tricked into thinking they had abducted him only to collect the rewards. The boys are deeply offended and swear they'll never set foot in that house again. That's all the bandits were waiting for. Cross-Eyed Dude finally drops the act, opening the doors to his murderous friends. No swordsmanship in the world can help Bao against dozens of intruders determined to take his girls. He tells his wife to protect Baby Bao, but it's hard to find a safe hiding place. Surrounded by enemies and badly injured, Bao is relieved to see the Shaolin ignoring their recent vows and coming to rescue his family. He finally sees the advantages of a joint effort. Together, the once rival families defeat the evil gang, beating the Kung out of their few. Ready to welcome these crazy boys into the family, Bao says the new price is 1 egg per girl. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 1984 movie Kids from Shaolin by Chung Yun Motion Picture, starring Jet Li and Wang Qin. So, which side of the river had the best characters? Let us know in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.